Welcome to Prophecy Breakdown. Today we're going to talk about angels, demons, and UFOs. If you're wondering what those three things have in common with each other and what they have in common with biblical prophecy, there's one binding agent between all four, and that's deception. So we're going to dig into that right now. In 1947, a UFO crashed outside Roswell, New Mexico. Actually, it's way outside Roswell, New Mexico. If I remember correctly, it was something like 60 miles, but it's always been called Roswell. But we first got the truth. Then the military very quickly changed its mind, and the lies began. Those lies have gone on for 76 years now.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction.
The Air Force has been accused from time to time of hiding information about UFO. What do you have to say to that kind of thing?
Well, these charges are absolutely untrue.
For decades, anybody who had the nerve to see and report a UFO was mocked, ridiculed, and marginalized. So most people who saw them became afraid to even go forward. A classic example of this, 1966, a small town called Dexter, Michigan. This little town was just covered up with UFO sightings. I mean, it was obviously the same UFO over a period of days, but the reports from eyewitnesses were numerous. So many that the police department was able to put together this sketch based on all the eyewitness reports. The federal government sent down a gentleman called Mr. Hynek. When he got to the police department, he talked about it, and he was honest. I don't know what this is. And they went out to the site of one of the most prominent sightings. And out there, he said, I don't know what this is. He got back to the police department. There was a call for him from Washington. He went into a closed room, took it, and came back out and said it was certainly swamp gas. They lied for 70 years, and the media did the government's bidding. Oh, let me back up. This may be some cabal completely above government control, but whoever the powers are behind this, the media does their bidding. And for literally 70 years, they went along with the practice of acting like people who had seen or believed in the UFO phenomenon were kooks. All at once, in 2017, exactly 70 years after Roswell, we don't get an expose in the National Enquirer or Weekly World News or on some conspiracy website. Nope, we get it from the good old New York Times. This big expose. UFOs are real, except they changed the name of them. They're now not UFOs, they're UAPs. I'm not going to play along with that. I'll get sick to death of jargon and words changing for no good reason. So I'm going to stick with UFOs. So we're led to believe here that someone in the Pentagon, we now know his name, but he kind of on the sly slipped this to the New York Times reporter. He just happened to, give her the flash drive standing in front of the Pentagon. I mean, could it be any more obvious that this story was planted for a reason? So we had a drip, drip, drip since 2017 of news. And over the past several months, it's just blown up. Everywhere you look, you got coverage about UFOs. Oh, they're real. And this whistleblower guy, Mr. Grush, he's given interviews left and right. He testified before Congress. Of course, Congress is getting in on the action. They don't want to look like they're not doing anything about it. But let's get real. You think our feckless Congress is going to get to the bottom of this? There's absolutely no way. Way back in 1966, a congressman named Gerald Ford, who would go on to become a president, tried to get to the bottom of it. You know, he got nowhere, and these guys on TV flapping their gums now, they're not going to get anywhere either. The people behind this aren't going to let us know exactly what they want us to know. Our government lied, denied, covered up for literally decades. Anyone who saw a UFO and came forward, or anyone who believed in the UFO phenomenon, was mocked, ridiculed, marginalized, and basically shamed into silence. Through the years, that continued. And the media, of course, did their job of portraying the entire UFO believer community as nothing but a bunch of kooks. So one question I have is why the U.S. government in particular has handled this way. Other countries did not. A lot of other countries around the world did open, serious investigations into UFOs, published their results, shared it openly with their citizens, but not ours. And I sometimes wonder, why was that? Did we capture craft, and did they want to reverse engineer the tech under the guise of national security? Is that what's behind it? Is it just plain old human nature that these people in power want to hoard more power, the kind of power that they get by being the only ones who are in control of something? Not sure. Is it possible that they've been in touch with these aliens for a long time? Is it possible that they captured aliens and formed some sort of relationship with them? Is it possible that they didn't have to capture them, that they somehow made contact outside of a capture or recovery scenario, and formed some sort of, I hate to use this word, but some sort of conspiracy? Is that possible? Well, yeah, I think it is. And on that note, I think it doesn't have to be limited to the United States. I think there could very well be a group of power-mad people with bad intentions. If there's a relationship going on with these creatures, I think it could be a global effort. But one thing I do know is that after all these years of deceiving us, in 2017, when that story came out of the New York Times, I was like, red flags, ping, ping. And they kept pinging over the past few years as the information just dripped out, a pilot here, a pilot there. And then over the past few months, it's just exploded. And now the red flags are just going nuts. Because why now? Why on earth would they choose, after all this deceit, to start now admitting, yeah, they're real. Yeah, they're real. We didn't know. We know now. And I do wonder if they have some sort of relationship with these creatures, and we'll develop this a little bit more going forward in this video, but given who I believe these creatures are, that wouldn't be good. So, however these creatures got here, let's agree that they did get here. The UFOs are real, and someone is piloting the UFOs. There's too many credible eyewitnesses through the years to just write it off and pretend that nobody has had contact with these creatures. So let's let's agree that they are here and that they have been here for a long time. My next question is, who are they? That's the first question I want to know. It's probably not this guy that I created with Midjourney. Popular consensus is that these are the guys driving most of the UFOs. This description of alien has been almost universal through the years. People who describe actual encounters with them. Let's pretend that this creature and all his brothers and sisters, if they have gender at all. So let's talk for just a moment about the ramifications of the secular masses being right. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that they're right, and this is a sentient race of beings who are from another world somewhere in the galaxy or another galaxy or whatever. And let's say that they independently developed from us. And let's further assume, for the sake of entertainment here, that they're right about us evolving. Now, they're not. The Bible makes that clear in Genesis over and over and over. But for our purposes here of this discussion, let's assume that we did just spontaneously erupted, and then over billions or millions of years in a series of staggering accidents that happened to go right over and over and over that we wound up here building rockets and smartwatches. Now let's pretend that on some unrelated planet, a very special planet, because a planet has to have a whole lot of characteristics in order to support life. And I'm going to do a much shorter video on that, and I'll link it below. I encourage you to watch it. It's going to be pretty brief, and it's about how special this planet is and how perfectly it's tailored for life and for us. But let's go back to the argument for the sake of this discussion. And let's say that these beings on their perfectly configured planet, life erupted, and through a series of fortunate accidents over eons of time, that they too sprang into a sentient race. What do you think the chances are that that race that independently developed through all these cosmic accidents would happen to have 2 legs, a torso, 2 arms, and a head, and walk upright, just like we do? I'm going to tell you what the odds are. 0. It didn't happen. These creatures, whoever or whatever they are connected to humanity. These creatures are from what we think of as the angelic realm. And most people would say that, yeah, these things, they're bad, they're demonic, and part of a big deception. I think that's wrong. But there's a twist on why I think it's wrong. And that is that I don't buy the common accepted theory that demons are fallen angels. I don't think they are. I think demons are the spirits of Nephilim. You probably know that in Genesis 6, some angels called the Watchers, who were supposed to be shepherding humanity gently along as God had instructed them to, started looking at our women and decided to come down and mate with them, and they produced a race of giants called Nephilim, who wrought all manner of havoc. And I believe that the spirits, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim when they died, of course they became part of the dark realm, part of satanic forces. But my personal theory is that because they once had physical form, and very powerful physical form, giants, I think they crave physical form again. And I think that's why they possess people. So they at least have some physical form again for a time. Now, although a lot of people out there who are smarter than me and who have studied far more than me agree that demons are not fallen angels, but are the spirit of Nephilim. The last part, the theory on why they possess people, that's a personal theory. And on any of this, you're free to agree or disagree, and I encourage you to say so in the comments. Just be civil, be loving. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And there's nothing worse to me than seeing fellow believers just get belligerent over disagreements on elements of prophecy and other interpretations of Scripture. So let's not do that. Let's love each other and act like it, even in our comments. Believe me, I understand the urge to get angry and lash out online, but let's try not to. And especially, please don't do it in the comments here. If you want to disagree, do so respectfully, please. If you really want to dig into this issue about demons, I would encourage you to check out a site at, I think it's khouse.org. But I'll link it in the description below, along with anything else I've posted up here. A gentleman who was the center of this organization for a very long time, named Chuck Missler, has since passed away. But he did an extraordinary job of digging into things like this and so many overlooked things in the Bible. He was just a fascinating man. And I'd encourage you to check his material out. There's a lot of it on YouTube. And like I said, there's tons of it on this site that I'll link below. So let's say they're not demonic, but they are somehow connected to the angelic realm. Well, what are angels? If you go along with popular culture and art, you think maybe they look like this. Everything we see in the Bible suggests that they don't have gender, but gosh knows this one certainly has gender, as does this one. This is another popular depiction of angels. It's some sweet-looking boy or girl with their wings and a wistful look on their face. And, of course, we all know that when good people die, they go to heaven and they get these. I'm being very sarcastic here. Angels are created beings just like humans, but they are not humans, and humans do not become angels. All right, let's move on. So what do they look like? Well, here's a popular depiction from the 1600s of Ezekiel's vision, and those are some pretty scary looking dudes, and the artist tried to create this based on a biblical description. Let's take a quick look at angels. There are a lot of words in the original Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek that were translated to our English translations as angels. In reality, there are a lot of different classes of angels. And you can take a look at this, and again, I'll link this below, but you can see that there are a lot of different classes of angels out there. A number of them mentioned in the Bible. There are certainly a lot of extra biblical sources out there. And while they, of course, don't have the authority of Scripture, things outside the Bible do have historical value. And the main thing to do with non-biblical historical material is to weigh it against the Bible. Does it conflict with the Bible? If it meshes with the Bible, then it might be worth considering. And on that front, I would encourage you to read the book of Enoch. There's a part of it that's called the Book of Watchers, and he goes into great detail on watchers, which were the sons of God in Genesis 6 who came to earth and mated with human women. It goes into detail about which ones were expert in what kinds of tech or other areas. These creatures were supposed to shepherd humanity along. Instead, they came down here and mated with our women and produced giants and then started experimenting with all manner of hybrid creatures and really messed up the gene pool. But there are good watchers. In fact, in Daniel, a couple of times we have, it's translated to angel, but if you dig deeper into it, it's referencing a watcher. Daniel referenced it, and Nebuchadnezzar referenced it. So let's say that the creatures piloting these UFOs are from the angelic realm. And as we just looked at, there's a bunch of different classes of angels. Do any of them look like the classic gray aliens? I guess it's possible, because we actually have very little to go on as to what the various types of angels looked like, other than the seraphim, which are described and quite frankly sound terrifying. And there's a little bit of description of cherubim too. And by the way, Satan was a cherubim. He was a very high-ranking cherubim, a guardian of the throne. But I won't get into the weeds of that on this one either. Let's say we agree that these creatures who are responsible for these craft, whether they're the ones flying them or not, are from the angelic realm. Is it possible that they're good angels of some variety? I started to say you can't rule it out, but I think we can rule it out. I did a little digging on what the communications are. What are the themes through the decades that we hear about from people who claim to have actually encountered these beings, usually through abduction? And this is what I found. Warnings about humanity's path. Oh, we're going to destroy ourselves, and we're destroying the earth. They're all about spiritual enlightenment and goodness and joy and connectedness. They've talked about hybridization. Now, on that aspect, I believe them. I think it's quite possible that they're trying to or have created hybrids of humans and perhaps themselves. I don't know. Going back to Chuck Missler for a moment, I was watching a YouTube video a few days ago, and the guy had been a friend of Chuck Missler, and they were talking about this issue. And he said, "Chuck, what do you think these creatures doing with this abduction and all this experimentation?" And he said, Chuck never hesitated. He said, "Satan's outnumbered 2-1. He's building an army." That could very well be so. And as I look through this litany of feel-good babble that these beings supposedly communicate to people through the years, it just screams Satan to me. This is exactly the kind of nonsense that he puts in people's heads. He convinces people that he's good and that they're good, and this snowballs, and that's how we wind up in the situation we're in now, with the world completely upside down. Right is wrong, and wrong is right, and good is evil, and evil is good. We're living through unprecedented deception. So many people have scales on their eyes. And these people are, and this society now is, oh gosh, it's so influenced by Satan. And that could very well be judgment against us for the way we as a nation that was blessed like no other nation in history, the way we've turned our back on God. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if all this that's happening is divine judgment. Considering everything else about these creatures and angels and different kinds of angels and how they got here and what they are and all of that, this little post-it note kind of sums it up for me. This right here, this psychobabble, this feel-good nonsense, just screams Satan to me. So I think dark forces are the ones behind UFOs. And I don't think they're innocent ETs at all. So to wrap this up and to come full circle, the binding agent between angels, demons, UFOs, and biblical prophecy is deception. We live in a time right now in virtually all of Western civilization where the deception is just off the charts, satanically influenced. Satan has twisted so many minds and convinced them that good is evil and evil is good and right is wrong and wrong is right. And when this sudden flurry of UFO disclosure happens right in the middle of all this, I think we're being played. I think we're being propagandized. I think we're being prepared for an even worse deception. I think we're being prepared for one of the grandest lies of all time. And I think it may very well be a part of either the tribulation or the part that leads up to it, or both. So I encourage you to just stay strong. And even if you don't believe that Christians are going to be here for the tribulation, what does it hurt to consider the possibility that you could be wrong, and to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for at least the possibility that you're wrong? Even if you were pretty sure that the rapture would be Saturday, wouldn't it be prudent to not run out today and Friday and just blow everything you have? Yeah. So it's prudent to prepare yourself, if you're pre-trib, for just the possibility that you could be wrong. And I encourage you, we're going to talk more about that in another episode, by the way, but I encourage you to dig into the Bible and pray to God. Ask Him for wisdom on this. Ask Him to give you clarity to see through the deception. Not only the deception we see throughout Western society right now, but this particular deception. And prepare yourself for an even grander deception that lies ahead. If you're not a believer, I encourage you to become one right now. These things we're talking about and Jesus are real, pure, hardcore reality. Jesus is as real as you or me. He's alive. He was the Son of God, came to earth, lived an innocent, sinless life, and died an innocent, sinless man for you and me. And I urge you to accept that gift and get to know him. Do that at your earliest opportunity. Eternity is real. When you die, you go on. Your body dies, but you will go on. It's just a matter of location. Firm up that location right now. Get to know Jesus. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. If you would be so kind as to click like if you enjoyed this, and subscribe and click the notification bell, I sure would appreciate it. And I hope to see you again. Thank you all, and God bless.